Welcome, everyone, to today's presentation. I'm going to add Jonathan Phillips to our screen. Welcome you if you are here or if you are watching us afterwards in the comments box. That would be great, so we can say hi to you, and we know that we've got a few people in the room. Also, feel free to ask any questions you have in the comments box as well during our presentation, and we're happy to take those comments, those questions at the end of the session. So that we know that we're all in the right place, this event is for mid and senior level professionals who are looking for a new job and who have been approached by a recruiter or maybe expecting to be approached by a recruiter about a job. To introduce myself, I am Jason Sanders. I lead Flycast Executive Search. We're a boutique search firm focused on the consulting and software industries. Personally, I've helped global companies like Bain, BCG, Accenture, and others hire executives. But more importantly, for this session, I have spoken with, counseled, and placed thousands of executive job seekers over a very long career. I'm here with my partner, Jonathan Phillips. Jonathan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, CEO of Magellan, and thanks everybody for being here. Over the years, we've been building groups in most of the major consulting firms. We've also built groups at a number of Fortune 500 firms, spend a lot of time now in emerging tech and clean tech. More importantly for this, I've spent the last 3 years building a career counseling business, helping senior executives figure out, gee, what do I do next? And certainly when a recruiter calls, that's a good time to have a clear picture of what you'd like to do.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Okay, so let's start by just talking about recruiters, who they are, what the different kinds of recruiters are. I think there are three primary ones. We have retained search consultants or recruiters like ourselves. There are contingent search consultants or recruiters, and then there are internal recruiters. Do you want to just go through those real quick so that we're all on the same page in terms of vocabulary?
Yeah, let me just start with internal. So an internal recruiter will be working for a single firm and be an advocate for that firm. Information you send to that recruiter is usually kept, archived, and shared. So as you talk to internal recruiters, remember that your conversation isn't really private. With contingent search firms, a little bit similarly, they'll talk to you, find out what you want to do, and then they might market your resume to multiple clients. So again, the information you share with them, make sure it's stuff that you want a number of people to know. Retained search firms, which is most of what Jason and I do, is a bit different. Here we'll get to know the candidate, we'll have an intimate understanding of our client's hiring case, but we will equally be interested in your career case. What's specific, what's special, what needs do you have? And not all of the information you share with a retained search professional, not all of that is automatically shared with the client. You have a fair amount of control over what we share and how we present your background.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of this behavior on the part of all three of these is driven by the financial model. So an internal consultant is an employee of the company that they're representing. Contingent model is you get paid once you place somebody. We could talk about that for a while, but you can kind of think through what the motivations might be for a situation like that, needing to represent multiple candidates, multiple clients, and a retained where a client hiring company will pay us in advance to find somebody where we're much more of an agent of that particular company's interests. So now a lot of times you may be contacted by a senior recruiter or somebody that's in a small firm or a solo shop that probably might be somebody like Jonathan or myself, or you might be contacted by a more junior recruiter or somebody in between. Junior recruiter could just have a couple of years of experience and reach out to you to do some research. And you can kind of handle them in a little bit different way. What do you think about that, Jonathan? How would you advise people to handle those levels?
I think it's very important. So if you get a call from a recruiter and you're on the spot, just be careful, guarded, and direct about what your interests are. If you get an email, I would look the recruiter and his firm up. It's very important to understand if they're contingent or if they're retained, because the nature of the call will be very different at that point. But you should look and gather as much information as you can before you pick up the phone and make the call. And if someone calls right away and you're not sure how to respond, I would be, professionally deferential and say, this is a great call. Let me take your name and number. I've got to finish up another conversation. Let me call you back. And with all due politeness and respect, look them up and figure out what's going on before you then call back. An ounce of preparation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No question about it. So now you've gotten a recruiter calling you, and what do you do first? So I got a few things. I'm going to kind of jump through these a little bit quicker, and then we'll get to kind of the meat of our presentation with slides and so forth. So why respond to a recruiter? My point of view is that even a brief response, anytime you get a call from a recruiter, will flag you for the next time they reach out. So it's quite possible that you get reached out to by a recruiter more than once, and a record is kept of your response. So whether it's an email or an in-mail or something that goes into an applicant tracking system, that record is kept. And so number one, you want to keep that in mind so that you respond appropriately and professionally, but also it gives you the beginnings, like kernel of a relationship, even if you just say, thanks, I'm not interested. So you've now showed some respect for the fact that the recruiter has reached out to you. In general, you should respond politely and thoughtfully. I get a lot of people, and John, you tell me as well, I'm sure that you've seen this as well. We get sort of brusque or demanding answers, which frankly can be upsetting, really. I mean, you get a response, how much are they paying? Who's the client? I mean, literally without even addressing thanks for getting in touch, hi Jason, just who's the client? And that does happen on occasion. And it really, apart from anything else, shows the value that the person we're reaching out to has for us. It says to us, your recruiter, the only thing you have to offer is giving me this little bit of information. And, frankly, our responses are either non-existent or just as brusque back. Have you had that, Jonathan? I don't know. Have you?
Yeah,
What do you think?
No, I think it's a very good point. And with all due respect, job seekers are often under enormous pressure, either from themselves or families, especially if they're really looking for a job. And when I get them on the phone, I do, in fact, try and help. If I'm working on something as a retained search firm, I have a limited number of projects I'm working on. If a candidate calls and they don't fit, there's really not much I can do. And contingent firm will often have a greater number of clients they could think about you being a fit for. But to be very clear, neither contingent nor retained search executives market candidates. That placement business, that's a very different business, and we might want to talk about that later. So when you call us, understand that we have a limited number of things that we're looking at, but we're happy to help where we can, and that mutual respect goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. So what to expect? So we reach out, we get in touch, say hi, you write back, yeah, I'm interested, right? So now there are a number of different ways that you can go about that. One is you can send your resume. That's generally a good idea. I think a basic rule of thumb would be recruiter contacts you, you contact recruiter, change information. Recruiter sends JD, a job description, position description, and you send a resume or CV back to the recruiter. That's sort of a standard exchange. Sometimes somebody sends me a resume right away. That can be good. If I'm, it could be bad. I mean, it's got a little bit more risk associated with it, but not so bad. At some point, though, there will be an expectation of a resume so that you can make the most out of a live conversation that you have. If you don't hear back from the recruiter, I think, Jonathan, you're kind of hinting at this. Please don't take it personally. A lot of recruiters are overwhelmed with work. They have a lot of candidates. And some of them, frankly, especially junior people, don't really know what to say when they're saying no to you. They might sort of know that you're not a fit, but not really be able to articulate it well and don't want to try to take the time to do that. So, it may not be the best way to be treated, but please don't cross the recruiter off your list for something like that. You should still take a call from them if something is a good fit. Keep in mind the volume that some recruiters are working with. Anything you wanted to add to that, Jonathan?
I get hundreds of resumes a week in email, and it's sort of heartbreaking. We can't respond to all of them. It's part of the reason Jason and I are doing what we're doing here in these LinkedIn Live sessions. We respond where we can, so don't take it personally. And if you do reach out, have a mission, vision, value in mind when you call. Tell us crisply, what would you like to do? And then see if we can help. Then you can kind of get through the job part of it to the mutual help part to begin a relationship. Recruiters represent leverage for you.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. So let us get to the meat of this. You have engaged with a recruiter, you're talking. What do you do, Jonathan? Do you show up prepared or do you show up seat of the pants?
So this is probably the most important step in the process. Before you begin a job search, think clearly about what you want to do. What is the job, rather career, that you'd like to have longer term? Do you have the right skills? Does it fit what you want? Do you know location? Do you know the industry? Do you know the function? Have a clear picture to define the solution space for the kind of job or career you'd like, so that when you talk to a recruiter, you can be clear to them, because they get lots of calls, and being able to quickly assess what your needs are will make the conversation far more productive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And know a little bit about the recruiter as well. You can look the person up, take a look at their website. If they shared the name of the company with you, you can do a little bit of research there as well. Number two, ask questions about the recruiter and the opportunity as well. The recruiter that I'm talking about here is actually some kind of a personal question, as little as how's the weather where you are. What do you think, Jonathan?
When I get an incoming call, the question that I like the most is when the candidate will say to me, so tell me, what kinds of projects do you and your firm prefer to work on? Tell me what you're looking for. If I fit, great. If not, let me think about referring someone. That sort of advocacy part of the conversation really makes me remember someone who calls.
That is a real relationship question, and it does not happen that often.
Yeah.
Even if you're not able to do that, though, we're not just the representatives of a company or the avenue to a job. We're people. And so being able to engage us, even if it's briefly, is something that we appreciate. But it's also what I do, certainly when I'm interviewing. I mean, step one in an interview is just to kind of say hi, how you doing? Are you having a good day? How was your weekend? I mean, just little things. And those answers can be very brief. But they can be very helpful. And then, of course, you should have questions about the opportunity, not just listen, but see if you can come up with some questions which will demonstrate your interest and get you more information about this one. You love when people call up and they say, "Oh, that's the perfect job for me." What do you think when that happens?
There are two things. One is, most people are a fit for most jobs. It's the nature of how the market works, and we should probably talk about that later. But you want to think, what would you really prefer to do from a career standpoint? What kinds of people do you really want to work with? And remember that the search agent often talks to their clients at both the hiring level and the business level. Often for a senior position, we're hiring for a specific role because we're trying to build a business's vision to generate more revenue. So we have market insights about the company. Your resume might be a perfect fit, but culturally, what do you want to do? Culturally, what is our client looking for? There are lots of behavioral variables. We have to talk to people to figure out if they're a complete fit.
Yeah, absolutely. And JDs change in the course of a search, something that we learn as we conduct searches. We get deeper into the understanding of what a client needs. And I tell you, when somebody says that they're fit, I cringe when they start the conversation with that, because it's usually doesn't turn out to be that way. Yeah. Get prepped. So this is get prepped by the recruiter before an interview with the employer, with the interviewer.
Yeah. You want to use recruiters as your advocates in the process, because they'll understand not just what the quantitative variables are for the role, but also the qualitative behavioral variables that sort of link what you want to do with your career with what the business is trying to grow. That preparation can be extraordinarily valuable.
And remember that the recruiter, a good recruiter, is a member of the hiring team. And so you're dealing with somebody that actually has influence in whether or not you get an offer.
Absolutely.
Communicate during the process. That's with the recruiter in this case, of course.
Yeah. That's a real two-way street. I talk to a lot of candidates who are abandoned in a search process by the search firm. They simply never hear back.
Yeah.
I know Jason and I are religious about not letting that happen. If you don't hear back after a week, just call. Don't worry. Just make a call and keep it friendly. But you should communicate, and you should insist on knowing what happened and why, and so that you can both learn from the process. Just keep it a positive call.
Yeah, and it's a good idea to, at the end of the interview, just drop an email to the recruiter. It takes very little time. Thank you notes are not done very often, and it's a good thing to do. But even if you don't do that, just to drop a note, let's. It's amazing how many people don't do that, and it's a really good idea to keep the recruiter as an advocate for your
In that
candidacy,
group.
and that's one very easy way to do it. And finally, maintain a relationship even if you are not a fit.
Yeah. It's leverage. We are advocates for you. And if we build a relationship with a candidate, they'll be top of mind for us when other things come up. And remember, talking to us is like talking to, 10 or 20 clients at one time. And it can be very helpful in both directions.
Yeah. All right. So keep the relationship going. I think that's a key to any of the in any of the presentations that we've given. Let's see. There is a comment here from Jacob Beasley. As a recruiter, I totally agree. Candidate's initial response is where you get your first impression of who they are as a professional, which sets the tone for your advocacy of their candidacy. I think, Jacob, what you're talking about there is the initial contact where you have some kind of, what would you call it? Rapport building moment, I guess. So introduction before you sort of dig into the position. Makes a lot of sense. Any other questions? I don't see a lot of things popped up on the screen today.
I can ask a question.
You got one? Okay, go for it.
So a lot of the people that I'm career counseling will say to me in the midst of their search process, how do I get more recruiters to know what I'm doing and engage with me? And Jason and I will eventually do this live online. We'll talk about how do you leverage LinkedIn. You say open to work, but even more importantly than just saying you're open to work, in your statement at the beginning in your profile, make it clear what you're really great at and precisely what sort of thing you'd be open to doing. So making yourself visible through LinkedIn is great. You can look up search firms and find out what industry they focus in, what search firms are in your local area that you could reach out to. You could ask other business contacts, what search firms have you worked with and who was really helpful, and court that source list as part of your network build in the middle of your search process.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. All right. So I'll just give you some idea of what we're going to be doing in the future. So next week, and it's going to be Thursdays, we're really looking at keeping things on Thursdays. How to write effective in-mails and emails. That's really important. How do you get somebody's attention when you reach out to them for the first time? I get a lot that I don't pay attention to and some that I do. So how do you do that? Then on the 22nd, we are going to have a very special presentation called LinkedIn Under the Covers. It's going to be half an hour, and it's going to be peeling back the tool that we use in LinkedIn and showing you how that is used. And it's an extremely powerful tool. It's something that you'll really want to know in terms of how you can present yourself to recruiters, because what they see is not what you see. And so we want to show you what we see and how powerful that is and how you can appeal. We'll also do a session on preparing a LinkedIn profile with that in mind. That'll be in the future, but we will do that. And then we'll do an interview prep. We have a special guest, Kathy Palm, on the 29th. And she's going to be talking about prepping for an interview with service in mind. It's a very different way to think about an interview. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. Really, Jonathan, I really appreciate it. We're just going to throw up a slide here with our contact information if anybody wants to get in touch. I see a final question here, so I'll take that question or throw it out to you, Jonathan, as we're closing here. It's from Waleed. He says, how to stand out among so many highly qualified candidates. It's hard to create advocacy given the supply-demand imbalance. That is an excellent question.
It hits the nail on the head. And honestly, the only way to do that is, the hard answer is the truth. To build an advocative relationship, it's 8 no's to a yes. If you're a senior executive, it's going to take a number of interactions how can I help you? How can we help each other? If you approach your network or you approach even a job interview with a binary, do you want to hire me approach, you're not going to get very far. So what you want to do is think about how do you help the people you're interviewing with or the search agent you're talking to, how do you help them? This allows you to have a conversation beyond just looking for a particular job, again, to keep yourself top of mind.
It's a
And
relationship.
when people hire you,
Um,
and you show up, it's not just to do the job, it's to have a relationship with you. How you build that relationship in the interviewing process, in the search process itself, is critical to standing out and getting noticed over time.
yeah, no doubt. Thank you. All right. Thank you for that answer, Jonathan. I couldn't agree more. Thank you, everybody, for showing up today. If you're watching this on tape, thank you for that as well. Please let people know about what we're doing here. We really would like to spread the word and grow this into something larger than it is right now.
Thanks for
Take
attending.
care, everybody.
Cheers.